Well, first and foremost, thank you everyone so much, and welcome to the second annual Africa Americas Forum on China. My name is Leland Lazarus. I'm the Associate Director of the Jack Gordon Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. It is a pleasure and an honor to have everybody on the virtual line today. Before I even get started, for those who haven't heard about the Gordon Institute before, we are the best and only national security-focused think tank in the Miami area. We focus on international relations, national security issues, U.S.-China relations, cybersecurity, and we also have a very robust intelligence program where a lot of our students intern and work for CIA, DIA, and other three-letter agencies in the US. And so if you haven't seen some of the work that our institute does, please check out our series of security-focused dashboards, specifically our China activities in Latin America and the Caribbean dashboard. It visualizes and aggregates all activities that the PRC and its entities are doing within the region, and we have aspirations to make that global, to include the African continent, Southeast Asia, and elsewhere. Also, please check out our analytic outreach papers. We have a series of outreach papers in which we discuss many security challenges, mostly focused on Latin America and the Caribbean, but also has global implications. I also want to thank our various partners who have made this Africa Americas Forum a success, specifically Howard University, University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, the Africa Center for Strategic Studies out of the National Defense University, the United States International University in Nairobi, Kenya, Flaxo, Argentina, the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub, the U.S. Institute of Peace, and so many others. You have really made this a reality. We had our inaugural conference, and rather forum, right here in Miami last year, and it was such a success that we decided to take it virtual in order to include even more partners. And I'm happy to report that at least 238 people have registered. We have 73 on the line, but I'm sure that more people will come online as the day goes on. Now, these two regions are, of course, bound together by the painful history of transatlantic slave trade, but they're also energized because both Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean are regions of promise. Young populations, robust and abundant critical minerals that will power the new energy transition. But we have identified that there aren't really any strong frameworks and methodologies in order to really talk about how the PRC and its entities are engaging in both regions. How do we compare and contrast that? And so that's why this year's theme is transregionalism, and we're going to have a discussion about some of the methodologies and frameworks that we could use and develop in order to compare and contrast the two regions. And so I'm excited for today, excited for the discussion. We have a roundup of some of the best minds and practitioners in both regions in order to discuss these various issues. But without further ado, I do want to give the floor to some of our partners for also opening remarks. Well, we also have Dr. Bob Wekesa of the University of Witwatersrand. Sir, opening remarks for you.
Thank you very much, Professor Leland Lazarus. If I may spell out your name on this occasion, and glad that we are finally having this conference. I know that we planned it many months, and we initially thought we'll have it in virtual format. I mean, in a physical format, but now we have it in a virtual format, and this is of course, a follow-up to our forum held last year in Miami. And we are very glad as the University of the Witwatersrand, better known simply as WITS in Johannesburg, South Africa, to be partners in this not only event, but the work that has preceded it and the work that will follow it, which is indeed research, studying the topic, and coming up with knowledge that helps us to have a fair understanding, but also take action in some respects. In fact, my few remarks will start with the observation that you have to just look at how we have framed this as Africa America's Forum on China. And if you paused for a moment to just reflect on Africa Americas in quotes, one then finds that this is a formation, this is a geographical location that is invested with quite a number of similarities. My colleague Leland already pointed out the fact that Latin America and Africa have a shared history in matters diaspora. Many people living in the Americas have affinities with their, continental Africans because they have origins there, whether as descendants of enslaved Africans or more recent migrants across those regions. And I think when you look at Africa Americas, you find that recent developments have indicated continued engagement within broader geopolitical dynamics. We are thinking here of the broad concept, sometimes contested, of global South, that Africa and the Americas are global South, kind of battling the global North, sometimes in good relations, in some other respects, in contested kinds of dynamics. So there's already some semblance of coordination as global South, countries. And of course, in the recent past, I mean, if we look at history, 20 or so years is a very short period of time. But during this time, we've had the emergence of the BRICS, in which South Africa leads the continent. We have Brazil representing the Americas. And of course, as we saw even just last week at this BRICS meeting in Russia, there's a clamor for more African countries, for more countries from the Americas to join the BRICS. I wonder what name it will take after all Argentina and so forth kind of join. And therefore, we already see some, kind of affinities under the BRICS notion. We have the G20. Africa has now been included since late last year. The BRICS summit is happening only a few days from now in Rio de Janeiro. And here is another semblance of coordination, connection, and intersection. Early this year, we had the Group of 77, the G77, and the non-aligned movement conferences in Kampala. And of course, the G77 and the non-aligned movement is top-heavy with the countries from the Americas and Africa. And in the broader context, we see multilateralism as a contested space. Just a few weeks ago, we had the Pact for the Future during the United Nations General Assembly, where the notion of inclusion of the Americas and Africa more broadly in the United Nations Security Council became a major issue of discussion. So in view of all these developments, where does China fall in? Where does China come in when it comes to Africa and the Americas? Should it be treated as China engaging Africa separate from the Americas, or are there any connections? And I think these are the discussions that we've had over the last couple of months and the ones that we want to continue having. Because, for instance, China is said to support certain Americas, countries in the Latin America and Caribbean to join the United Nations Security Council. China has also been pushing for African representation. The talk is that there's a historical injustice here, and that China is good in terms of correcting these injustices in the international system, particularly at the representation level. And so in view of all these connections, we look at the periodic triennial forums or conferences that China hosts with the Americas and with Africa. So we think that although this subject of Africa, Americas, engagement with China has been treated separately, it has traveled parallel paths. There are actually very many connections. And I think the onus is on us as researchers, as scholars, as civil society, people to actually look at the connections and offer some suggestions going forward. So I'm very glad that we're having this discussion and looking forward to vibrant discussions, no holds barred. Let's differ if we must, but let's find intellectual pathways forward as we go on. And thank you very much. Back to you, Leland.
Dr. Wekesa, thank you so much for your opening remarks.